Good afternoon, everybody. Let's get this show on the road. It's the last session, so let's get moving. Get closer to that party. Hopefully it's actually outside tonight. Thank you all for being here at PDMI East again. My last chance to talk to you. Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer, John Yarrington, our CEO, is in here. We want to say thank you to every single person who's here, who's been here all week, and your support is so meaningful to us that we would never be here without you. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Most particularly, thank you currently to Paymerang, who's sponsoring the educational sessions. We got a quick video from Paymerang.
People ask me frequently, what is Paymerang and why do you use it? I tell them that Paymerang is a great way to pay your vendors, and you also get money back. And usually they're like, that's too good to be true. You've got to be kidding me. And you don't have to do all the upfront legwork. So I talk to them about it and I tell them how it works. You sign up with them. They do all the research on your vendors. You send them your vendor list. They do the research. They give you an average of what potentially your rebates may be based on that information. Then with that information, you go through it. And after you've implemented, you can see it takes away so much time from your accounts payable team. You see that you no longer have to do massive bank reconciliations. You see the amount of time that it saves your team. I don't know why anybody wouldn't use Paymerang. So when I'm talking to other CFOs or I'm talking to other controllers, I tell them why I use Paymerang and I explain the process of using it. And then most of the people want to find out about it.
So thank you once again to Paymerang for their support. We're here today to talk about CTV and get the perspective of agencies on the current state of that market. As kind of a piece that we did in our magazine, if you want to pick it up around the show, had a lot of agencies involved in it. We got 3 leaders here from 3 of those agencies. If you looked at your program or online, you might notice that we've got a couple of replacement players today. Travel and whatnot got us, but we've got a couple of really top-line replacements. Josh Winograd from Chief Media replacing Vic Golio. Josh is really the expert at Chief on CTV. And Andrew Troy from Dish Media taking the moderator chair as Dan Kelly couldn't make it. So thank you both on short notice for being here. And joining Asieya Pine from Lockard & Wexler Direct and Chris Bishouty from ProMedia, and a home game for you today. Yep. So thank you guys. Take it away.
Great, thank you, Tom. Get some local support there.
Yes.
Look at that.
They came out strong.
Lot of pressure.
That's our family, man. They're good.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. So again, my name is Andrew Troy. I'm general manager at Dish Media. Quick plug, one plug. We are the leaders in addressable advertising and live OTT. That'll be my only plug, by the way, guys. It is your show. So, it's a great article that was published last week about really what's going on in the CTV marketplace, and a lot of agency experts were able to answer some questions about some challenges, hurdles, and really what to expect next in the overall marketplace. I mean, there's no doubt that CTV has accelerated, right, over the past 2 years. I think the pandemic has really helped that. The lack of content in traditional TV has definitely added to that as well. But it really truly is about following the consumer, and it's been an integral part of a media mix. So let's kick things off. I first want the panel to introduce themselves and talk about the role at the agency. I'll start with you, Josh.
All right, so I'm Josh Winograd, Chief Strategy Officer at Chief Media. Chief purchased my company, Futures Media, last year. And Futures was focused on the automation between linear and digital-minded professionals, which seep into CTV as well. So part of the overall responsibilities is really understanding how to best bring CTV, OTT, all sorts of addressable video initiatives to performance-based brands, whether it's hardcore ROI or what we are branding as brandformance as well.
I'm Chris Bishouty, COO at ProMedia. I joined the team in 2014, 2015, pretty instrumental in taking ProMedia from a pure media buying agency to a full-service agency. A lot of my focus has been around our technology and building our patent-pending technology platform and handling operations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asieya Pine. I'm the president of LWD. Been with LWD for 22 years. We are a video marketing agency focused on strategic planning, optimization, and buying for linear and OTT.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Welcome. And we will have time for questions at the end. I know Chris's team is ready to pepper him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's get started. So, please jump in as you guys see fit. But, when you look at CTV from an agency perspective, like what are the kind of the two things that you would recommend entering into the overall marketplace?
I could start, unless you were.
No, please go ahead.
One is understanding, if you're talking about it from a marketer's perspective, what is it, first of all, right? I think definition of terms is extremely murky, and people, and especially marketers, don't understand what the CTV versus OTT versus online video versus addressable TV, which can be done in linear. What actually is it first and foremost, right? Second is how. How are you actually going to execute these buys? Is it calling up the sales reps? Is it programmatic? What are the underlying technologies that make up that programmatic ecosystem? Because from a marketer's perspective, how much of my dollars are actually going to the vendors, right? And what's that tech tax in between? Not that it doesn't make sense or pay for itself, but so it's understanding first before jumping in, because it's exciting. Like everyone wants to be in CTV. But A, what is it and how is it done? Get those two things right, you can start putting the right game plan together.
I also think it's important that a lot of in lead generation and in direct response, we're really used to these longer unit lengths, 120s and 60s. And I think what a lot of clients are doing is that they're just cutting down those unit lengths into a 30. And with CTV, you need to have a strong 30, a strong message, a strong call to action. You need to have that complete message, and that's really important that the client really thinks of that as a whole message from start to finish.
Absolutely. And I want to piggyback on that. Really know your goals going into CTV. I mean, knowing your goals is really important because with how CTV is structured and knowing, your goals in the market you're trying to get to, being able to invest those media dollars in a way where you can actually maximize your ROI.
So let's stay there real quick. So, how are you using CTV over your overall media mix as it relates to your overall goals?
So it really depends on the client. Right, CTV is not really for everyone, but we're using it for right now incremental addition to the portfolio for the client. We still see a lot of meat on the bone for us in linear, but it's a nice piece to add in for us on the CTV side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the client. I mean, we have several clients. If you're an e-commerce based client, and you really have that data, CTV can perform just as well as linear, if not better in some cases.
Josh, you touched upon this when you were, talking about ways to entry, direct IO versus programmatic. Love to hear your perspective of the advantages and disadvantages of each ways of entry.
Yeah. So ultimately, you want to get the impression, and our job as the agent for the marketer is getting that as efficiently as possible with as much flexibility. Sometimes that's using relationships and calling up the sales rep in order to make sure we're securing that the right way, and it could be part of a bigger sort of deal as well. Other times programmatic might be the right way. Programmatic through, either going in through an SSP or or DSP and creating private marketplaces, and you're able to interpret the data so that you can then validate that effective targeted CPM is more efficient that way. So again, it's like it's like what was being said. Understanding the goals, understand the avenues to get that impression, making sure it's the right impression that the client actually wants. Again, OTT versus CTV, and then going and securing it. And again, with these sort of advertisers that we're dealing with. Like Mark was saying on the last panel, we want to follow the data. The attribution is going to let us know what's working and what's not, and being able to optimize and as close to real time as possible is absolutely paramount when trying to get performance to deliver.
Gotcha. So talking about what works and what doesn't work, have you guys seen unsuccess or lack of success in buying CTV?
So for us, looking at the landscape, the real issue in trying to buy CTV effectively at this point, and it's fairly early on, is really getting the verified eyeballs, knowing that you're getting the impression that you're paying for, or you're trying to pay for. And that's where there's a lot of sort of bleed in that spend.
We're seeing success, but in terms of programmatic, it's an easy way to buy a wide array of different platforms very easily using an audience base, right? With the direct IOs and things of that nature, I think you can get, especially for linear TV agencies like us, we're able to leverage the relationships we've had for over 20 years to really work with our partners to get really great pricing on the CPM. So there's definitely opportunities where you can see success, and the CPMs are much more affordable.
Gotcha. So I guess where you are seeing success, are partners helpful in terms of making further recommendations on how to enhance the buy, or make the targeting better, or optimize? Are you seeing that from the vendors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big pieces that we're seeing is that the connected TV piece of that might not be performing well, but adding in that retargeting layer is really making the biggest difference. And that's where you're seeing the best success in terms of ROI, CPO, et cetera. So, and the partners have been great about really working with us. Also in terms of, I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but really being able to shift between online video versus connected TV, depending on where, mobile devices versus desktop, all of those things make a difference. So all of the partners really helping with letting us, revise the buys as needed.
I would say that the partners have largely been helpful. Where we still see a little bit of a black hole is in the transparency on the data, so that we can actually go and mine it and prove that CTV actually is working on a performance basis. We still can't 100% prove that as of right now. Part of a bundle, like we were talking about before, layering retargeting, linear buys, yes, and we know that CTV is working to a certain extent, but it's getting the granular data from the sell side so we can do proper attribution. That's still evolving, and it's gotten better, right? I mean, this conversation 7-8 years ago, we're never giving that data up. We've definitely taken a lot of steps. This is like this cruise ship turning, and it's taking a long time to turn, but it's turning.
Yeah, I mean, our partners have been fantastic. Our partners are, very vocal in terms of working with us and understanding the challenges that there are right now early on. And they have, bent over backwards for us to make sure that we find the efficiencies that we need. And as far as, the attribution side of things, we're really excited about advanced audience metrics and tying all that in. So that's really a big focus of ours right now.
Great. Yeah, we tend to keep our data in lock and key.
Yeah.
or stuck in our legal queue. One way or the other. It works both ways.
You guys are getting better at it.
We
Slowly but surely.
We do try. So just shifting gears a little bit here. Talking about the CTV marketplace and the brands that are participating in. Have you seen a shift or a specific category growth in the last year in that marketplace?
I definitely think a lot of the e-commerce based brands, like for us, like something like a Tommy John or a Dr. Squash, who started their businesses online, they're seeing great success. ROIs that are similar to linear, in some cases better. I think there's less success with some of the traditional lead gen, but again, I feel like that has a lot to do with not having that complete message with the 30-second spots.
We should add walk-in music, by the way.
Yeah,
that was really good.
No, I mean, I'd agree. We're seeing a lot of those direct-to-consumer, the newer brands. A lot of the it's almost like every Instagram commercial that you see now, ad that you see is popping up on OTT, CTV.
Yeah, I would largely agree that from those subset of advertisers, they're showing a tremendous amount of tolerance for not having, I'm going to spend $1 and make $3. They're buying into, this is an audience and it's going to contribute overall, which has been good. And we're seeing traditional guys that are in retail seeing success as well, especially with increased data sets being able to validate things like what Trade Desk is doing with the Walmart data. So, I mean, it's coming and it's getting there. But People are willing to test, which is nice.
Good.
It's not pulling teeth.
Retail data is huge right now. I think that's one of the biggest hot topics in our business today is how to get access to that retail daily data because it's really valuable.
It validates things. We know it's working. We don't want to half our advertising dollars to, we don't know where it is. We don't want to go back to Wanamaker.
No. 50% of the advertising. What was the quote again?
Because 50% of my advertising works. I just don't know which 50%.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The one. It was well before like TV was even out, right? There was no thought of TV when Wanamaker made that quote.
Radio.
Talking about radio and print. So would you say that we look at CTV that it's very broad, that any advertiser can jump in? I know we talked about e-commerce and retail, but would you say it's at a point where all categories can come in and enter and play?
I think so. I mean, I think it's important that before you enter the CTV market, as Josh was saying, I think it's important that you understand what it is. You understand your audience, which I think a lot of the linear people who have been in linear do have a better understanding or through their digital marketing efforts. So really having that audience and who you want to hit, all of those things, as long as you have all of the right information, anyone can really enter into the market.
The only thing I would add on to that is really depending on the target demo is really how much of that OTT spectrum you can add into your portfolio. That
Great.
Sort of older demographic. There's definitely a piece there, although it may be smaller. The younger you get, that piece of the pie gets larger.
I would largely agree in terms of audience extension on existing campaigns, but if you're talking about like the life cycle of a client, I don't know if I would recommend a startup jumping straight into CTV.
Yeah,
Start getting the Facebooks and search and more granular things first, and then use that data to go into CTV.
To enhance it, yeah.
I mean, as far as demographics are concerned, I think this space specifically was known as this younger audience, cord cutters. But you look at the traditional TV marketplace. I think the stat was earlier this year that 75% of those viewing TV are 50 plus, which is, let's call it a little older. But do you look at CTV as a place to reach 49 or less, or do you look at it as this is where viewership is heading? It doesn't matter really the age, and if you look at all the content that's currently on there, I think it speaks to anybody and everybody, all ages. Do you look at it that way, or do you look at a specific demographic when you're looking at CTV? Asieya, we'll start with you.
It's definitely more 18 to 49. That's for sure. I think it's getting older. But if you have a campaign that is, that 50 plus audience, definitely starting in linear is the right way to go. If it's 18 to 49, you're going to see better success with CTV.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar sort of thought process, but there is enough inventory out there that you can parse in order to reach demographics. There's going to be very few campaigns that have so much dollars that I can't use CTV at all. I think that there's enough inventory that you can parse out and do some data analysis on that you can reach your audiences pretty well. It's the price point which is the issue.
Yeah.
And we're fairly agnostic in terms of demo. We're not, obviously it leans heavily in certain demographics, but we're always keeping our ear to the ground. We're always testing, and we're watching as those demographic shifts change in terms of responsiveness, and that's kind of where we're shifting dollars where it makes sense.
So as we see the dollar shifting over to this space, right, in droves, are you guys then seeing, I'm going to the traditional side of things, are you guys seeing things opening up for your traditional linear clients at all?
No. No, I wish that was the case. No, I think the linear is still tight, but I actually feel like more people are entering into the direct response linear TV space. I think clients are wising up. I can spend my dollars much more efficiently in that direction, and why wouldn't I? And so yeah, definitely not opening. I don't know if you guys are seeing.
No, it's definitely not opening up. And in all honesty, being performance marketers, CTV really, what we do complements what is going on at CTV. And in fact, it's sort of an enhanced version of what we do because of the access to the extra data, because of the access to the extra attribution that we get with CTV, being able to track the IPs and all that sort of stuff. It's just it is going to be that next level for performance marketing as it continues to mature. But yeah, no, it's definitely not getting any easier on the linear side.
It's not getting any easier, but the conversations are getting easier, if that makes sense, because a lot of the people that are rising through the ranks, even at the bigger companies, have a digital mindset that maybe came through search or programmatic, and they understand this trader mentality. What this ecosystem is doing is trading, right? And that's a lot of tool sets that we built at Chief and Futures was around trading for linear TV to complement the digital tool sets that are out there. But the conversations that you have with someone that maybe is a new CMO that came up through digital is very different than someone that came up through linear. And they understand this philosophy of, okay, I need an omni-video campaign. I can trade between linear and CTV and OTT. And I get that, things are going to move around. And I'm comfortable with it because I did that in search. Keywords are changing.
I also think that linear is being impacted because now, with digital, with all of the privacy issues, digital advertising is not working nearly as well. And so when you are looking at two CPMs, a digital CPM and a linear TV CPM, and they're the same or linear is better, you're gonna, where are you gonna push your dollars? With linear you can get mass market awareness as well, and you're not getting the same efficiencies because of the privacy issues now.
Right. So, we know what's going on the linear side. Supply is hugely impacted. But when you look at this space specifically on CTV, I'd argue, I'd love to hear your opinion on it, that they are having supply challenges as well. Little other fact, besides my 75% fact, is that only about 45% of streaming services are ad-supported. So how do you navigate through, I would argue, limited supply? And what are you hearing your vendor partners?
So there's really the reach issue, right? The reach issue comes about, and that's where you're saying, well, all CPMs are not created equal.
Right.
And it's very evident in OTT that all CPMs are not created equal, and we've done the response rate studies on our side, and again, we're very strategic about that when we're looking at that stuff.
Like you said before, fraud's an issue, right? Because you could spoof the SSPs, so you don't know where things are really coming from, and there's a lot of games being played. It's really similar to how online video was in, let's say, 07, 08, when there weren't the verification systems. So we'll get better at that as an industry, and things like with Simplify buying Core as an example, and Innovid buying, was it TV Squared, right? Where these digital mentalities are coming through, verification will start getting better as well overall.
It's going to be important.
Yeah.
So then, looking at, you just talked about efficiency, so I'll dive right into that piece.
Sounds good.
How are you managing, I think what some folks would deem as a lack of efficiency in CTV versus linear from your overall marketing mix?
I think with CTV, it's definitely, the CPMs are definitely higher. And then there are other issues like the fraud, there's the frequency cap. So again, I think the industry is all going to move in the right direction as we all have these conversations with the vendors, with the programmatic partners. But I think, the one benefit I've seen, in particular when you're doing a direct with the vendors, is if you can use like a ad serving platform, really identify those IP addresses or the client IDs that have seen your ad and really match it to the client's file one for one. There is definitely efficiencies that you're finding there. So it's not that it's not that the CPMs are so bad that you're not going to be able to get it to work. I think you just have to. I think the vendors are working with the agencies are working with the clients to identify the right CPMs for each of this. And as the measurement gets better, all of these efficiencies will move in the right direction. And 3 years ago, this conversation couldn't even happen. Nobody knew what we were talking about, and we've made leaps and bounds in performance marketing on the CTV side.
Yeah, for us on the CTV side, we're actually not paying attention to the CPMs to determine efficiencies. We're actually using, because we're performance marketers, we're using the metrics that drive the campaign, right? The currency of the campaign, the call, the web hit, and seeing what is the actual response that we're seeing. And if that backs out, then technically speaking, that CPM doesn't really matter, right? So the efficiencies really come from that responsiveness.
And what are your clients responding to that kind of metric? How are they responding?
So we're responsible for a return on investment. So if the return on investment
Yeah.
is coming back, then no one's really going to argue.
So they're just saying 1 + 1 definitely equals 2.
Yeah.
There's no other variable to it.
Stop talking, he's a vendor. CPMs matter. We need the really great CPMs. Thanks.
We're on it. Mary, are you in there? There she is. Just kidding. Is efficiency also playing into your role at Chief as well?
Yeah, 100%, right? We have to reach things as efficiently as possible. But the CPMs are a little bit of an issue because that does back into the bottom line. So, there's a couple of ways to reduce it. One is by great negotiating, which our team does, and I'm sure your team does as well. But the second is I think we really need to focus on the tech tax, right? Do I need to sign up with a DSP who then uses a million different data sets, who then interacts with an SSP to eventually talk to you? Or can I start working with you besides just a handshake? How do we plug in my data spine at Chief Media into the data that you could provide? And now we're starting to get some pretty significant operational efficiency. So there's ways to get more efficient. And again, we're evolving together, and it'll get there.
Yeah, the tech fees are a big challenge that I think both sides, vendors and agencies, need to tackle. It's kind of like, who's covering what, right? And you're covering this, right? I'm like, I don't know. It's another whatever percent on top of this.
Just waste that's out there, right? And
it is.
If we could eliminate that, I think we could really move the ball quite a bit.
Yeah. So what are some of the opportunities that you guys are starting to see, like trending-wise, in this space? Josh, we'll stay with you.
I think the big thing is omni video, and going to clients saying that, CTV, obviously you want it to be part of your mix, but what's the right plan to make sure that the optimization is in as close to real time as possible and everything is operating together in order to reach your ultimate goals, and being realistic about it, being transparent with the challenges in the space, not over-promising. And I think that, that's where it is looking at video as a whole, as opposed to things being siloed out. And everyone's done a really good job of that, specifically over the past 3 years, to get there. But breaking down those barriers are just super important.
I think there's huge opportunity in education at this point. I feel like the more conversations that we're having with the vendors and really requesting information, understanding the marketplace, we've been able to add 20% on top of the overall budgets to CTV, OTT, all of it, and I think that there's just huge opportunity there for everyone to learn from each other, to be open about what do our clients need, what do the agency needs, and what works for the vendors as well, and to come to a place. I mean, when I started in the business 22 years ago, linear was nowhere near what it is today, and we all work together to make this industry great. Performance marketing has redefined itself multiple times in the 20 years I've been in the business, and I think that this is just the start of something new that we're all going to figure out together.
I'd agree wholeheartedly. The opportunity for us, I think, also lies in the ability to understand the consumer better, to really get into more refined consumer engagement and advanced audience data that really can drive a campaign more efficiently and make those buying decisions even easier, and again get a actual truer CPM.
Yeah, the silos have been broken down. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about it now for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, I'd say. Finally, we're getting to it. That's great. Shifting the gears more to the measurement side of things, right? What are some of the kinds of measurements that you guys are working with to prove out the ROI? Chris, we'll start with you.
Sure. So our tech stack is 100% proprietary and centered around bringing as much of the consumer engagement into the system as possible. So it's pixel tracking, it's phone tracking, it's essentially text, QR code, whatever it is, and being able to see the consumer engagement from end to end. That's kind of where our focus is.
Yeah, we have our technology is called Continuum, which we started, I think, about 17 years ago, and has had a nice life cycle in terms of linear, print, radio, TV, out of home, and now CTV is part of this. And it's about, how do we move from probabilistic data, which is largely what we've all been built on, to more deterministic data sets. And the challenge is a lot of these deterministic data sets are living, if you want the LG one, you have to go to the LG platform. If you want the Samsung one, you go to the Samsung platform. VideoWimp actually got the deal done with Comcast. So I think that as we can get more deterministic data sets, we can get a more accurate reflection of what's working, what's not, and move away from sophisticated probabilistic models that go beyond just lift-based into more deterministic data sets that help power that as well.
We also have a proprietary attribution technology. I think a lot of performance marketing agencies have built their own technologies in-house because there was a lack of great technologies for performance marketers. But I think there are companies that are coming out, like Innovid and Buying TV Squared and iSpot and many others, who have great technologies. I think the issue really is, like you were saying, they might not be using as broad of a data set as we'd like to see. And so the proprietary technology we have is something very similar to both Chief and Pro.
Yeah, so are there, I guess you are cross-tabbing the proprietary data with third-party data. Is that
right.
basically what you guys are trying to accomplish overall to get the best sophisticated data set that you can?
Yeah, I mean, Nielsen still rules everything.
Right.
Things are moving. Last panel did a great job outlining their challenges. But specifically with the marketers here, they want to view things through their own prism. And the technologies that we've created allow marketers to view things through their own lens. And I think, besides just true direct response marketers, that's going to start moving more upper funnel as well. And we're collectively in a good spot to educate the entire ecosystem on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, the measurement side when you're talking about Nielsen and, obviously if anybody has spare time this afternoon, I think there's a 140-page report out there that was published by NBC last month. Read it poolside or beachside.
Just give us the notes now. We have a couple minutes left.
I will not. Anyway, so looking at data and staying in the data lens real quickly, how does CTV kind of mix and match with your traditional side? And we did talk about like that omni view, but Josh, we'll start with you. How are you guys looking at it from an omni-channel standpoint across all your
So again, it's about doing planning the right way. Data-driven planning is at the heart of things. So while we might use some of the tool sets that have been historical in the TV space, think like the MRI and the Simmons, we also want to use, more of the pixel data. So we have clients' first-party data layered on top of other sort of data sets to get a better view. And now you can run a custom data-driven, both linear and CTV plan to go execute, which then goes into what's the best way to execute this now? Is it handshake, programmatic, this, that? So it all starts with smart planning, smart attribution, and, figuring out the right avenue in between.
Yeah, I think the tools are also advancing. I mean, Nielsen's come up with their fusion data and all of these other tools that you can use. So really understanding, where this audience is watching, where you can reach them, and putting that full plan together from start to finish is going to be the most important thing moving forward.
You can't get away from Nielsen just yet, right? No. MRC accredited, no more, but it doesn't really make a difference, does it? So, I guess what changes of measurement would you want to see, like in the next couple of years, to really enhance the overall space?
So I talked about it before. It's really, in terms of measurement, it's really those advanced audience metrics that help you build a better, build a better demographic and psychographic profile of who you're trying to target. Because the better you understand your consumer, the better you are going to be able to, represent your client and buy on their behalf.
I think we need to have better data sharing. I think there are certain partners that are still very private about all the data share, and for all of us to be successful, I think that those changes need to happen where everyone's aware of where they're running, how they're running. We can verify all of these details. And then I think everyone benefits, not just the clients, not just the agencies, but the vendors as well. We'll see increased ad dollars coming to them.
She's asking you for the key to the vault.
Yes.
Oh, the key to the vault. Let me call my attorneys. No. Let me get the data sharing agreement out. Let me dust it off. It's in my pocket. But don't you think that's where maybe programmatic lends a good hand, because then you're relying on like a DSP to pull in a lot of the targeting together across all these different vendors? I mean, did you see that that's maybe an advantage to kind of conquering that feat?
Absolutely. I mean, I think programmatic is a great, easy way of getting into that and really getting that wide array and getting the information. But even with programmatic, they're not 100% information sharing. They're using their own proprietary technologies to report out. Right. So
not only report out, but the bid logic is typically black box as well.
Right.
And that's what the real secret sauce is that, how do you create the bid logic to be your own? And that goes into the whole bidders being black box or the bidders being programmable in nature. But the more data that we have, the better it's for the advertiser, but ultimately for the sell side as well. I would agree with your point.
I mean, do you see that, black box being transparency, do you see that as one of the major flaws when it comes to anything that you're working in kind of the data lens?
Yeah. Why is something opaque? Like, to me, that doesn't make much sense, right? Everything should be transparent if we're all in it together, including, the cost of media, including the data, including the bid logic, so that we're all sort of in the same sandbox together, building a nice sandcastle.
Yeah, and I think the clients want transparency, right? They want to know that we're not eating from a different pool, right? And so, how can we do that if things are black box? So I find some of the limitations are if it's a black box partner, clients might not approve that because they want that transparency. They want to know that what we're attributing is actually not eating from what they would have attributed on some other digital marketing effort that they're doing. So I think the more that we can all information share, the better it gets for everyone.
Gotcha. So I guess, talking to the audience, some folks may not have stepped into CTV marketplace just yet. I guess, Asieya, we'll start with you. What would you recommend to buyers out there that are kind of just dipping their toe in the water?
On the agency side?
Yes.
I'd say, get all the information from the vendors. We're in the middle, and we've done a lot of RFIs. So request information, ask them how they're sharing their data, ask them what what kind of ad serving platform that they're using. Get your list of 50 questions out to every single vendor and get all that information. The only way to do the best negotiation is to have all that information, and then also vice versa. Making sure that the clients understand here are the partners we're choosing because of these reasons, right? And so I would say, start collecting that information, understanding the marketplace, understanding the audiences for each of those, each of the platforms that you're working with, and information share.
Absolutely. Know the limitations of what you're getting yourself into. Don't think it's going to, be the 100% solution, right? It's a piece of a much larger puzzle.
And I would say understand the terms, first and foremost. Number two is have people with both traditional and digital experience part of the understanding process, because linear TV really, and I come from a digital background, I've been wowed by linear TV's understanding of their audiences, right? And that's delivered in a one-to-many environment. And a lot of those metrics need to be shifted over to like an IGRP formula or something else. The digital people are inherently going to understand the one-to-one nature of things because of the backbone that they have in terms of the data and everything is one-to-one. And truly, CTV is the perfect mix of both linear and digital. So have both experts involved in the process along the way.
To that point, I'd say too, ask questions. Ask questions internally to those experts, because it's very important to learn and not be afraid of the change, whether you're on both sides. I mean, from working on a digital side to linear or linear to digital, that's really important. So those are questions I had for you guys. I want to flip it out to the audience to see if there are any questions for the panel.
Not a single question.
Oh, come on now.
From your friends.
Absolutely killed
you guys
it.
nailed
No,
it.
they've been told to be quiet.
Here we go. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. So for the CPMs, what are you seeing as that range? I know it depends, but are you looking at $20 to $40, $40 to $60, $10 to $15? What are you guys seeing?
What are you buying?
In terms of performance, I think, you really need a sub $15 CPM. And so I think you got to find the right vendors.
On what, though? You're getting sub 15 on what?
Sub 15 on, it could be on P2 plus on the audience, whoever
In terms of delivery, you're sub 15 on like connected TV sitting back or OTT as well?
Yeah, OTT as well, yeah. And I think that's the range that you need to be in to really see the performance.
So, but you can see ranges, anywhere from, I've seen as low as 6 up to 45.
Right.
It's a pretty wide marketplace, but yeah.
I would say for CTV, if it's a lean back experience and you're watching it on your television, you're not going to really see it much less than $20. If you're starting to blend in OTT, which is on a smaller device or other sort of online video, you can start getting that effective CPM down to those ranges. And I agree, once you start blending in all of those ranges and you do the retargeting, that's when you start getting performance.
Also, the amount that you want to target, how specific you want to get is going to affect your CPM as well. So that's going to, if you want to be really, really specific, yep.
Thanks. I have a question about the CTAs. Are you seeing more QR codes, or are you just seeing driving to Amazon, driving to a landing page, or what's kind of the mix that you're seeing now?
So yeah, so the most effective that you're really going to see because CTV is sort of an interactive environment. It's set up minus the actual, minus the sit back and watch part of it. When you go cross device, a lot of that is clickable interactive. So you see a lot of drive to web being very successful.
QR code's still a newer technology too,
Yeah.
so I think it's going to gain traction at some point. We're seeing a lot more companies using it. What you're actually finding though with the QR code is that it's only incremental right now by like maybe 5 to 10%, but it's taking it's taking away from some of the web response. So again, as that gains traction, I think that will become a bigger part of that mix.
And I would say, the call to action is specific to to how you're viewing it. If it's lean back, you can't really, you're not sitting there clicking. But if it's, on a tablet, then you can start taking what works in digital and apply it to that.
Did I see one over here? Or is someone just moving their arm? Anyone else? All right, one more.
I'm just wondering what, a lot of times with digital, we're reading the effect of someone going to Amazon as opposed to going to, the client's page or whatever, or retail or whatever the KPI is that they have. I'm just wondering if you've seen any kind of relevance in data with the CTV OTT market and Amazon, if it's kind of a similar halo effect, if you will, or is it the same as digital?
I'll reserve my answer till next year. Only because we haven't run enough volume yet, at high enough volumes, and there is still some gaps in the data that we're not getting. That next year at Eden Rock, we will have better answers for you on that one.
I agree with Josh. I think it's too early to tell. I think you definitely see the effects of linear TV on your Amazon business. I just, it's hard to tell with the OTT just yet.
Last chance. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wonderful group. Thank you all for being here. Show floor is open until 5, party at 5:30. Right now, we're hoping to be outside still. Fingers crossed. We'll, if not, we'll see you upstairs again. So take care.